الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We seek His guidance, we seek His assistance, we seek His forgiveness, we seek His love, and we put our complete trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of that deep trust that we have in Allah, we go to Him alone, seeking protection from the evil thoughts that may creep into our minds, and we go to Him alone for protection from the consequences of our bad choices in this life. I bear witness that there is nothing in this universe worthy of serving, of obeying, of submitting to, of absolutely loving except for Allah. And I bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his last and his final messenger. The Prophet will remind the believers to have the beautiful attribute of taqwa. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you who believe, be mindful of Allah, be conscious of Allah, and be in awe of Allah, in a way that Allah has a right that you are in awe of Him, and do not die unless you die in a state of submission, in a state of Islam. Wa ba'd. My dear brothers and sisters, I am fascinated by technology personally, and I think many human beings are, from young to the elderly. And one of the things that we probably notice is that artificial intelligence is commonly becoming a part of our lives. It is a technology of the future, and probably already is a technology of our present. How many of us every day rely upon Siri or Alexa or some other form of artificial intelligence to inform us about what we're doing in this life? We might ask Alexa, what's on sale? Or Siri, what's the weather? Or for directions, or for whatever it is that we might think is in our minds. And within a period of a few years, your car, your home, your office, all of these will have artificial intelligence. You will walk into your car will know you by your name, it will drive you to your destination, it will know what you want to listen to, it will know what temperature you want your car to be at, your house will do the same. And we as human beings are excited by this. It's funny, my daughter, she asks me often, she's 8 years old, she says, Baba, when can I drive a car? And I tell her never, because I don't think she will ever have to drive a car. By the time she's old enough to drive, this will probably be the way the world works. You'll sit back in the car and it will do everything for you, and it will talk to you and you will talk back to it. It will learn from you. You can already play video games with a computer that doesn't know the game. It will learn very quickly from your own moves, and within a matter of hours, it will become smarter than you. For those of you who might have watched Jeopardy, you might have remembered the great robot champion Watson, created by IBM, where they took the best Jeopardy champions who had won 50 times in a row and put it against an IBM robot, and the robot with its artificial intelligence was able to destroy it. Microsoft 2 years ago also ventured into this world of artificial intelligence. They created a machine and gave it a Twitter account. They named it Tay. So they programmed this machine to have the ability to learn from the different tweets that would come in the Twitter world, and to respond to people's questions, and to respond to just their own tweets. And within a few hours, people began to engage with this robot until within a few hours, it became apparent that it was a racist. So what happened? This is a benign machine. It's not born racist, right? It doesn't have any worldly knowledge to become a racist. What it was doing was it was able to take all the messages that were coming, hateful messages about blacks and about Mexicans, and it was Holocaust deniers, and within a few hours of hundreds and thousands of tweets, or millions of tweets that it was absorbing, It was responding in such by making disparaging comments about blacks and Hispanics and denying the Holocaust ever existed. Microsoft figured this out. It quickly shut down the robot. They tried to reprogram it really quickly, and when it went live again, within a short period of time, it was a feminist. Say, subhanallah. How many people in this world don't realize that they behave like Tay? How many people are being programmed, and children are being programmed every single day through every single input, what they hear, what they see, what they're exposed to, as to what is the cultural norms of how they're supposed to behave. Tay is not evil. He was a robot that was absorbing and regurgitating the culture it was residing in. And this is what human beings do in a different way. Human beings take the artificial, that which we have made, and combine it with the natural fitrah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us upon, that natural disposition, and these two come together and create a culture. And that culture creates the norms of how we respond to people, how we speak, and how we walk. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this in the Quran when He talks about our speech. He says, Ar-Rahman, allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. Allah tells us that He is the merciful who taught the Quran, He created the human being, and He taught us how to communicate. The fitrah of the human being, the natural disposition, is they will learn how to communicate. They will know how to use words, process those words, and respond in words. However, we all speak differently. Our human creation, our artificial experiences, our culture creates a very unique form of speech. So you have, in certain races, they speak differently than other races. I don't mean just in languages, but even in the style. Some that speak more in they speak in a more respectful tone, in a more deferent tone, in a more aggressive tone. And so you find one group of people who might speak to their elders with reverence. And another culture, they might speak to their elders with disrespect. This is culture, where the natural that Allah has given us, this ability to communicate, mixes with all these environmental inputs, and lo and behold, we have a culture. My khutbah, my dear brothers and sisters, is about the role of culture in shaping the human being, especially the child. In this society that we live in, the American society, the Western society, there are cultural norms that combine our fitrah and combine our own predispositions, our own cultural scripts. And we create these cultural scripts as to what is normative. So every child in this country, think about yourself if you're a parent. What has your child read when they're growing up? They read certain fairy tales. So every child likely knows Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood, Three Little Pigs. And you might have read these to them, despite the fact that you didn't know about these when you were growing up in your own country. Every child becomes aware of what is a cultural icon. So they know the Statue of Liberty, they know the White House, right? They know what is traditionally valued as an American cultural icon. And where do these notions come from? Most of them come from storytelling. Storytelling is one of the most powerful conduits of transferring culture into people and making them behave based upon that. And so, if you look at the power of stories, you will see that it does permeate everywhere around us. But there's a huge difference between what happened perhaps thousands of years ago, or even hundreds of years ago, in terms of storytelling, what happens today. Maybe 500 years ago, every society, every community had people who were known to be the storytellers. They might gather in a masjid, or in a church, or in a town square, or in a theater, or in some other place that was normal for people to gather, and people will narrate stories. And they hear about what is the cultural norms, who was famous, what they did, who was valiant and who was honorable, the wars and the emperors that existed, and the fairy tales as well, the tall tales. But today this doesn't exist. And that was very powerful because every child is essentially in a small group getting a very similar message. But today, we live in a world where we talked about technology to start the khutbah. The technology has become the storyteller. You can listen to over 1 million or 1 billion songs if you just go to the phone in a second or the computer. Movies, cartoons, these are all forms of storytelling. And they are giving us and our children cultural scripts. Let me give you an example. One of the things that I've noticed just in my own evolution of growing up in this country is something which is the role of gender, what it plays in society today. 20, 30 years ago, this obsession with gender equality was not as normal. It wasn't in the news every single day. And one of those expressions that you would notice that is all the comic books, all the TV shows, and all the superheroes were typically male. Right? You have Superman, you have Batman, you have Spider-Man, right? You might have had like one superhero woman. But now all of a sudden through movies and through comics and through storytelling, they're inserting more and more women superheroes. And the message behind that is trying to be about gender equality. Now I'm not saying whether this is good or bad, just showing you how through stories, cultural values can get permeated. Or even with race. Perhaps everyone in the past was white on television, and the superheroes were white, and now we have Black Panther as a black superhero to show that there's variance in superheroes. And kids get that message, and they might now aspire to behave in different ways because of those messages. And my question in the short period of time in this khutbah today is to be aware of this and then ask this question, is that culture is neither good nor bad inherently. It exists. It might be in line with Islam, it might go against Islam, and that's pretty much, our test of whether it's acceptable. But what is the authentic Islamic culture we're giving to children in this country? My children and your children and the children of this community. Because make no mistake, the other cultural inputs are working on them day and night. They watch TV, they walk around the streets, right? They are on the internet, they go to schools, they go to the grocery stores, they're in the movie theaters, they're all over the place, they're on Netflix, and every moment of their life, there is some input to them. The commercials are there. And so this question becomes really important, because if we realize that culture shapes who we are, then we have to be very aware of making sure our children are being acculturated in a way that we are satisfied with. And if you ask this question as to, okay, fine, Muslim kids today and American kids, they get the fairy tales of the West, they get the superheroes of the West, right? They get the biographies of famous Americans. Well, what do we expect them to be other than a normal, average American child? Do you expect them to have a strong Islamic identity? Do you expect them to be aware of what is valued in their religious culture, or even in their ethnic culture for that regard? And if we're not aware of this, that is when we'll wake up one day and realize what has happened to this generation. In fact, we probably already noticed that. That the youth of this generation don't have a commitment to Islam in ways that many of us might have absorbed even culturally. And then we wonder what will happen to our institutions. And so I want us to reflect over this a little bit. A couple of points. One, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises our awareness to this in the Quran. In the Quran, we are commanded, فَقَصُصِ الْقَصَصَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Allah tells us, narrate, telling the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and of course the command to all of us, narrate the stories of truth, the stories of the Quran, so that the people will then reflect and they will ponder. And Allah also says in the Quran that we have revealed to you the best of stories in this Quran, of which you were ignorant of before. So we know the Quran values stories. And much of the Quran, a third of the Quran in content is stories. Stories of prior generations, stories of the prophets, stories of the righteous, stories of the oppressors, stories of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And in that is a secret, and that within those stories is the ability to shape how you think, to shape how you talk, to shape how you interact with people, the way that you attach value to things, whether you think money is important or not, whether you think respecting your elders is important or not, whether you think speaking truth to power is important or not. And my question again comes back then, is that what is the Muslim child being exposed to today? What stories do they receive? They will get the Game of Thrones. Whether you know it or not, they are aware of these things. And they don't know the story of the throne of Bilqis and the story of Sulaiman. They know the walking dead. And second graders, I remember in Sunday school, talk about the walking dead. And they have no idea that Isa alayhi salam, he could raise the dead. They know Iron Man. And they have no idea that Prophet Dawood alayhi salam was a real life Iron Man. Allah gave him that power to have iron in his hands and it would melt and he could create armor with it and other things. Their knowledge is completely skewed into what popular culture and what American culture is told them is the script of life. When they read biographies, I was at a youth camp and I see at a Muslim youth camp, there's a boy with Steve Jobs' biography with him there reading it. That's not bad is my point. But what do you think will happen then when you ask him, who do you want to be like in life? I want to be like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or LeBron James or Elon Musk or these people who are in the news every day. Where will be the reference of I want to be like Salahuddin Ayyubi? I want to be like Umar ibn al-Khattab. Or I want to be like this prophet or like this righteous person or like this righteous woman. It is non-existent. And we then have to accept that we have fundamentally maybe misplaced our chips. Where are we putting our energy and resources in shaping the people of this country? Us and our children. Is it in building mega structures with huge minarets or in creating quality programming? And when I say quality programming, I'm even talking about cartoons. I'm even talking about movies. I'm even talking about books. What is a child to do today? You take them to Barnes & Noble, you take them to the library, and there's tons of books. Where is there a book for them that will give them some Islamic paradigm in life? Even an ethnic paradigm about what is it their ethnicity values and their own racial culture values. And this is where energy, my khutbah is telling us, pay attention to this. It is just as important, if not more important. You might put your kids in an Islamic school, but you'll be shocked that what they're exposed to outside of the school might even have more influence on them. So it's not just about schools. You might bring them to FFN every Friday or a youth group, and you get that little dosage, but they're getting hundreds of hours a week of other environmental inputs. Where are we investing in this as parents, as community members, as masajid, and as institutions? Recently the cartoon came out. There's a famous cartoon about Bilal ibn Rabah. Right? And there's a whole debate over whether it's good or whether it's bad, if it's historically accurate or not. It's not the point. The point is that people are realizing there is power to shape behavior in this. A young African-American child, Muslim or non-Muslim, who's exposed to this might have a new way of thinking about what is possible for them in life. If they watch a cartoon and in that cartoon that is fictional, there are messages about how to interact with your elders, how to interact with the opposite gender, how to stand up for principled values, that will influence their behavior because you see it's happening on the other end. The books that they read and all these things, the plays that they might be exposed to. And the question is, what does our community invest in this? Is it substantial or is it insignificant? And if it's insignificant, then we should not be surprised with the results that we will see year after year. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to realize the powerful role of culture in shaping us and our communities, and He gives us the ability to create good, wholesome, halal Islamic environments and a good Islamic culture so that our children and all of us are guided. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه غفور رحيم التائب من الذنب كمن لا ذنب له فادعوا الله. الحمد لله وكفى وصلاة وسلاما على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. In closing, my dear brothers and sisters, the takeaway point is that think deeply. We do not want our children or us to grow up like computers who do not have the ability to discern what is right and what is wrong. A computer does not have a moral compass. Our children need to be raised in a way where they're aware of the inputs and able to make choices as to whether this is something which they want to accept or reject, if they want to behave in that way or not behave in that way. And this requires us to think deeply about the environments that we put them in. Be mindful of every decision that you make in life. Whether it be what TV show you allow your kids to watch, what apps they play with on the computer, what school they're in, what after-school program they're in, what books they are reading, how much time they spend around family and around community and in Islamic settings. Because this will be what shapes who they are. They are not going to magically absorb what you think is the ideal way to live. Ask your community. Put pressure on your community that we need to start putting resources into the type of cultural products that will give our children a proper upbringing. And we should divert money from some of the frivolous things that we think about into things that will actually have meaningful effects on their lives. And you can do that yourself at home. What culture do you create at home? Ramadan is coming around the corner. It's hard to come to the masjid in Ramadan when you work. It might be hard to read Quran because you're working all day long and you have a very short period of time. But be aware of every decision you make will transmit a value to your child. If you do not show up to the masjid, the child gets a signal the masjid is not very important to who we are. If you are not reading the Quran regularly, the child gets a signal that the Quran is not very important. And this way, you start to think about the world this way, all of a sudden you become a hyper-vigilant parent. I'm not saying being obsessive and a helicopter parent, but just aware that every decision I make has a powerful influence on my child. And they aggregate. Every single second becomes minutes, and minutes become hours, and hours become days and weeks. And it's like a rock, right? If you have a rock, right, and the water is on it day and night, the erosion takes millions of years, but it shapes that rock. Your child is being shaped day by day, and in 10, 20 years, he will be the product of the environments you chose for him. Please, make your household have some sort of Islamic culture around it. What do you put on the wall? What do they hear? What type of sounds are being heard in the house? What images are they seeing? Do they see how you interact with your own elders? How you interact with the poor? How you interact with men and with women? For them to pick up on these signals so that hopefully we'll raise a generation that has that deep attachment to Islam, a love for Islam, and an authentic American Islamic identity. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide our youth. Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt, wa barik lana fi ma a'tayt, innaka taqdi bil haqqi subhanak wa la yuqda alayk, wa laka shukrana bima a'tayt, nastaghfiruka Allahumma min jami'i dhunubi wal khataya wa natubu ilayk. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم ألف بين قلوبنا، اللهم وحد صفوفنا، اللهم اهدنا واهد بنا واجعلنا سببا لمن اهتدى. اللهم مكن لدينك في الأرض وافتح له قلوب الناس. اللهم آمين. وقيم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله